Good evening. Welcome to the San Francisco Selenium Meetup, our last meetup of 2016. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Raise your hand if this is your first time coming to the San Francisco Selenium Meetup. Yeah, I see a lot of new faces. Cool. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Alyssa Leiden. I'm one of the co-organizers, along with Bill McGee. We run the San Francisco Selenium Meetup. So now you know the face behind all those emails you've been getting, so hello. We are so grateful to be able to run this meetup and meet a lot of people in the testing community. It's always great to see everyone networking and coming together and promoting a great open source tool like Selenium. So there are a lot of people here who are just starting with Selenium, a lot who are experts. So feel free to talk with each other and network and get to know our experts and everything. So let us know how we can make this meetup better for you guys. So a couple quick announcements. This is our last meetup of 2016. We will continue into 2017, hopefully with a January meetup. We're always looking for sponsors, whether it's location, food and beverage, videographer. And then, so if your company is ever interested in hosting or picking up the food tab or the booze tab, let me know. Reach out to me via Meetup. Additionally, the most important thing is content. I'm always looking for new speakers with new ideas. So if you have a topic that you're really interested in speaking about, just send me a note. Even if it's just a little tiny thing, we can always hash it out and try and come up with some really good ideas to make it a full presentation. So feel free to reach out to me via Meetup. I want to thank our wonderful sponsor tonight, Mozilla, for letting us use this beautiful little community space. So thank you, Mozilla. Clap, clap, clap. And tonight, since it is the season of giving, it is, the holidays are right around the corner, we are going to do the same thing we did at a previous meetup. We are going to give away a free Selenium training class today at the end of the presentation. This is sponsored by SauceLabs. We offer instructor-led Selenium-based training. It's a $750 value. It's a full course. It takes about a half a day. So we have these 2 iPads circulating around. I'm going to go ahead and pass them out. They'll have a survey on it, totally optional. Do not have to fill it out if you don't want to. Just take the quick survey, and then at the end of Chris's presentation, I'll go ahead and do a raffle for that training class as well as a runner-up prize. So feel free to. Again, Mozilla was so great to let us use this space, and with that in mind, I want to introduce our friend Arcadio from Mozilla, who's going to talk a little bit more about some of the cool things that are coming up in regards with Mozilla and testing. So, Arcadio.
Hey everyone, welcome to Mozilla. It's a pleasure to have you. So my name is Arcadio. I do product marketing for Mozilla. I specialize on developer marketing, which is pretty cool considering the thing I'll talk about right now. So the slide, I think after reading it on screen, it's tersely called Test Your Code, which is, I'm not your dad. I'm not telling you to do something. But that's kind of how the slide ended up from a previous presentation. But it is relevant in that, we're Mozilla, we do Firefox, and one of the things that are dear to our hearts is making sure that the internet and the web is available to everybody, everywhere on any device. So that's sort of the premise where we started working with. I'll just show this crazy little chart here. We made our name, back in the browser wars against the Internet Explorer. And it's interesting when you look at it today. There's much more web, right? This is the crux of this chart. There's 60 times more users than there were 20 years ago. There's over a billion indexed websites, and there's over 24,000 devices available. And all that means that there's more people consuming your content on more devices in more sort of circumstances.
Match this slide?
Say again?
Match the slide.
Yeah, let's see if we can do that. Probably hit present. We also have this, we can share this in a,
This is recording.
Yeah, it is recording.
yeah. We also have a really neat handout that we can circulate after this meetup, and some really cool articles around this. So you have access to this. The point of the slide here is there's a lot more web, there's a lot more users, and there's a lot more devices, which is more opportunity for broken experiences, right? This is one of the things that we've noticed in our product, and some of our users say as much, like, hey, you know what, some sites don't work on Mozilla. So another way to say that is compatibility, it's still a thing, right? It's something that we're concerned with, and it's something that we want to try to fix. And so we've embarked over the last 3-4 months on this idea that, hey, it's really great for the web for us to raise awareness around compatibility, making sure that you test your code everywhere. And to that event, we've put in a series of articles on compatibility. Chris Mills has helped write many of them. But the premise being that there's a lot of reasons why you should test in more sites, in more browsers. One of them is missed opportunities, right? Another one is empathy for your users. And there's probably a zillion more. But we've created a conversation around it. We've got some really great traction here. But we want to do more than just talk about it. Back where I'm from, there's a saying that says, don't talk about it, be about it. And so that's kind of one of the things I want to sort of display here today. We've created a partnership with SauceLabs, specifically around getting more developers, specifically front-end developers, to test their sites. Some of the feedback we hear from developers is that, hey, you know what, my company won't, pitch in for an account to do automated testing, so it's hard for us to do it. So we pick one and we go there, or to say, hey, I'm kind of an indie developer. I really can't afford a testing environment like that. So the partnership with SauceLabs is starting today. It's about providing developers a 30-day extended trial to SauceLabs with some really key benefits. And the idea being that as Mozilla and as SauceLabs, we want developers to have free and easy access to a testing site. So we've put up today, this went live, we put up a little landing page on Mozilla that does a really good job of getting you to a testing environment. And also we put together a really great tutorial on GitHub that walks you through the step of how to do a manual test, how to get to an automated test, how to run tests in parallel. And Chris wrote that, so he'll talk about that. It's pretty brilliant. Lands at SauceLabs. Here you can pick your platform, pick your browser, sign in with GitHub, and boom, you're in a testing environment the free and easy way. Like I said before, it's completely free. There's really no sort of commitments there at all with us or with SauceLabs unless you want there to be. It's a 30-day extended trial, which you won't find on their website. And it's for unlimited manual, unlimited automated testing, and there's a pre-built Selenium training discount in there as well for anybody who comes in through this program. So that's the thing that I wanted to share tonight and ask you all to take a look and try it, and also let us know what you think, what things we could do better and how we can improve it. Eventually we want to make sure that this thing scales, and so that we can provide this service to more developers around the world. This is an MVP, but we think we're going to be able to expand this program next year in Q1 and Q2. And with that, I don't know that I'll field any questions because I think we have a really great speaker. His name is Chris Mills, and I'm going to ask him to come up now and tell you some cool stuff. Chris. Let me plug you in.
Thank you, sir. We're back to this GIF again. I'm sure you folks are sick of seeing this GIF by now. Past it. I'm from Manchester, UK, and I actually left there this morning at 4 a.m. So my time right now is 3 a.m. So I'm feeling slightly crazy, but I'll try and make this as informative as possible. So before we start, a little bit about who I am. I'm a technical writer at Mozilla. I write lots of stuff on the Mozilla Developer Network about APIs and all sorts of cross-browser testing and accessibility, and I also am in charge of writing our beginners training program, so there's loads of articles on MDN as well about your basics and best practices of HTML, CSS and JavaScript. I'm a total accessibility whinge bag, that's self-proclaimed. I believe that there's a lot of really cool things that we can do with the web these days, but still the coolest, sexiest thing about the web for me is still the fact that it allows universal access for anybody, regardless of any disabilities they might have, provided it's coded correctly, of course, so don't lose sight of that. Outside work, I'm a heavy metal drummer, so if you come up and talk to me afterwards, please speak slowly. This is the other thing to mention is that you don't need to worry about taking lots of notes, because I've already put these slides up at slideshare.net/ChrisDavidMills. So there's a few useful links and things in here, but don't worry about writing it all down. It's all available up there. This is the obligatory heavy metal drumming slide. That's not me when I had more hair. I never had hair that was that cool, unfortunately. So in this talk, I'm going to say a little bit more about the importance of cross-browser testing, some of the stuff that Arcadio has already touched upon, but I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. I'm going to say a little bit about the Mozilla Developer Network cross-browser testing course that I've written and what material's in there and why I wrote about it. And I'm also going to say a little bit about kind of my experience in getting acquainted with cross-browser testing and test automation and Selenium and all this good stuff that you folks probably know a lot more about than me. In terms of my kind of coding skill set, I'm pretty much a pure front-end dev, so I was going to share a little bit about what I found easy and what I found difficult, which might be useful for some talking points later on as well. So let's talk a little bit more about cross-browser testing. Arcadio's already touched on some of this stuff. You know, it's still important, even after all this time. We've got so many more websites than we used to have. We've got 3 billion or so web users, 8.1 billion connected devices, 24,000 distinct mobile device types, which sounds like a crazy number, but apparently it's true. Lots of different browsers available on each of these device types. And the other thing that I always try and make sure that we think about when we're talking about cross-browser testing is also thinking about accessibility testing as well, because it's the kind of thing that's quite easy to lump into the bargain to make sure that it's available. But around 20% of users have some form of disability, which is quite a significant number. Maybe a lot of people don't realise that it's quite that high. In terms of why people don't do cross-browser testing, I think one of the main issues these days is that people just newly coming out of code schools and other places where they've learnt to do web development don't have quite as much of an experience of cross-browser issues. I don't know, like anybody that's been doing web development, web design type stuff for more than about 15 years will remember the days of, you know, having to write this bizarre spaghetti forked code to make sure that we could try and get stuff possibly working in it, IE and Netscape, before it became Mozilla Firefox. And there was all of these really strange CSS hacks you had to do just to make stuff basically behave in Netscape. So a lot of newer web developers have just not experienced any of that kind of stuff and are pretty much just going, well, hey, I can write this stuff and it basically works in Firefox and Chrome and Edge, but it still doesn't exactly work, and there's still issues that come up, so it's still an important thing to learn about. I've also looked at a lot of code school courses recently and been quite shocked to, obviously I would be quite shocked being a Mozilla employee, but a lot of these courses that you find these days will just basically go, you know, whenever there's a point where they've got to a point in a tutorial where they need to test what they've done so far, it goes, so you need to test it now, so open it in Chrome. And it's just like, because Chrome's the only browser that exists. Grumble, grumble, you know. But a lot of courses literally do say that, so you kind of think, well, actually, no wonder people aren't really fully appreciating cross-browser testing if they're just being taught that in their courses. I think another problem that leads to lack of cross-browser testing is people going, okay, well, I want to write this really cool cutting-edge web experience that does this, this, and this, and it uses all of these bleeding-edge features that aren't going to work, you know, back in IE 9 and IE 10 anyway, so I'm just going to kind of sweep them under the carpet and say that that's not my target audience, so that's fine and we should just carry on. So, you know, it's this kind of slightly, I'd say, unhealthy attitude to testing that kind of starts to lead into these sort of dark spirals, and we should try and avoid that. Of course, we don't get this so much these days either, like vendor prefix features, but there are still some features out there that at least have a vendor prefixed version available in them. You know, you get most browsers these days support the non-vendor prefixed version of new CSS properties, you know, things like transforms and transitions and animations, stuff that for a while you had to use vendor specific prefixes for, but these days most browsers will support the non-prefix version, but the trouble is people will still use the prefixed version, which of course locks out browsers that don't support that prefix version from being able to use the site. And this kind of problem has got so prevalent that it's even led, I don't know how many of you have heard of it, but There's actually a browser compatibility spec now being written at the W3C, which literally specs out universal support for things like WebKit prefix CSS properties, just to make sure that this erroneous code is compatible and will work in all browsers. You know, Firefox now has support for certain WebKit prefixed features. Edge is also implementing it, so you know it's quite a severe problem, and it's a bit of a kind of a blunt trauma way to get around the problem, but it is happening. There's also some other cross-browser issues that seem to pop up quite a lot. So sometimes, even though we have rapid release cycles in terms of browser releases, there are still some bugs that seem to be really slow to fix. There's not a huge amount, but there are a few prevalent ones. Like I came across one recently in Firefox that was first reported about 12 years ago and still hasn't been fixed. I was quite fascinated by that one. I was like, really? You haven't fixed this yet? It's like, no. It's like, okay. I tried to make a few deals, and shake a few of the right hands, so hopefully it'll be fixed soon. And then, bizarre as it sounds, you still get quite a lot of browser sniffing code out there in the wild. We have a whole compatibility team at Mozilla that just goes around finding problems with sites and grumbling at them to fix these cross-browser issues, but there's still a huge amount of browser sniffing code out there. I'm not sure really how much of that is just legacy stuff that's been hanging around the web for ages and how much of it has been recently written. I'm hoping not that much of it has been recently written, but yeah, there's still a lot of that stuff out there, as opposed to feature detection, which is obviously the better way to do things. And of course, and really this is the kind of crux of the matter that we're getting to, I think especially a lot of people that lean more towards the front-end dev side of things, such as myself, perceive that the toolchain or workflow behind cross-browser testing and proper automated testing is really difficult. So I think quite often small shops where they're mainly skilled in front-end web development don't bother with cross-browser testing because they just think, oh, setting up Selenium, oh, that's painful, and just, yeah. So I've come across quite a few people that are under that kind of impression too. So with all of this said, I decided to write a course about this. I kind of felt like it was my duty and I had to. I mean, obviously it was a good thing to do to support the cross-browser mission that Arcadia was talking about. But I looked at it and I thought, well, a lot of this stuff actually isn't that hard, but there just doesn't seem to be that much really simple documentation available on it. So I've got the link available there in the slides if you want to find it later, but I decided to write a course on cross-browser testing that was really simple, beginner-friendly guide to how to do test automation and all this kind of stuff, but it was also friendly to front-end devs. Because I think a lot of the kind of stuff just assumes too much knowledge of server-side environments and things, which is the kind of thing that if you're more of a server-side guy, it's just, or girl, it's going to be really, really obvious, but if you're more of a front-end type person, it can be a bit scary. So the stuff I've covered in that course, it covers more kind of esoteric things like, what actually is cross-browser testing, where in your development workflow should it actually be put in, and then there's also the issue of, exactly what should you test, if you're writing this type of app, what spectrum of browsers should you actually test that in? What are the most important ones to cover? I mean, I've always quite liked the way that Yahoo first started to pioneer the kind of the browser support chart, where you'd have like the A grade browsers and the B grade browsers and the X grade browsers, in terms of stuff that has to be tested, stuff that isn't tested but it assumes it will probably be working there, and stuff that just explicitly isn't tested and is known to be old and not very compatible. So I've advised to do a similar kind of thing and taken people through like how to draw up your own graded browser support chart. Then a lot of the course also touches on solving common problems, because really before you start getting into the nitty-gritty of cross-browser testing to weed out the sort of the more difficult bugs, you should make sure you're using best practices for HTML, CSS and JavaScript in the first place, because without that strong basis you're going to have trouble anyway, so get that all out of the way first. And I've also in the course covered a whole bunch of accessibility stuff, like obvious CSS issues like making sure that a page has good color contrast between the background and the foreground, and also how to do some slightly less well-known things like getting acquainted with a screen reader and doing some actual screen reader testing on your page. I consider that to be quite important and quite useful as well. So that's all covered. And then, of course, then for the last part of the course, I get into the whole automation side of things, like so setting up and running Selenium, combining it with SauceLabs, but also how to use task runners like Grunt or Gulp to actually automate a lot of the tasks that you're just going to do over and over again. That's also a key thing that quite a few front-end devs don't really get. So that's the course. At this point, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I found easy and what I found difficult. So obviously the webby stuff was the stuff that I found really easy. You know, it's my bread and butter. I've been doing it for years and years and years. We also know quite a lot about the different browsers available. And of course the accessibility stuff, I've got a lot of experience in accessibility testing. So that stuff was really easy to write. I found that actually writing the Selenium test logic was pretty damn simple once I actually got the damn thing working. And actually writing and running the tests was easy as well, but of course being a front-end dev type guy, I immediately went and just ran the stuff using Node, because Node's just JavaScript, so it's much simpler for me to get my head around than some of the other stuff that I've not got as much experience in. And also props to the SauceLabs folks. I found the SauceLabs integration was very easy and very simple to set up. So all of this kind of stuff I found very simple, like the requiring WebDriver and making new driver instances and accessing a page. I'm not going to run through this stuff in detail because I'm sure all of you folks know this like the back of your hand, being you're at a Selenium user group, running tests, finishing up, and then of course accessing SauceLabs and just running the stuff in SauceLabs I found was very easy. Just literally specifying your capabilities and where the server is and your credentials and going from there. I found that very simple. Then there's also the matter of using the SauceLabs API to actually update the job data after you've run the tests. So basically, you use this SauceLabs module in Node, you probably, or the equivalent in whatever other server-side environment you're using, and just basically say, okay, again, here's my credentials. The one thing that I'd like to point out that I found a bit confusing was that when you use this SauceLabs API module, you need to use username and password rather than username and access key like it is in most of the WebDriver modules on Node. I found that a little inconsistent, but once I got past that, it was relatively simple. But when you've actually done that, you get the session ID to identify the particular job that you want to update the information for. And then in terms of updating that ID, you see I've got here SauceLabs update job, and then you can basically specify the information you want to update and just send it up to SauceLabs to update. And I found that stuff pretty easy to do, so that was cool. Now, in terms of the stuff I found a bit more difficult as a front-end dev type guy to sort out, actually setting up Selenium I found to be a bit of a challenge. And I don't particularly think that actually setting it up is difficult. It's just that there's a heck of a lot of documentation out there. I think like the actual Selenium documentation, it kind of takes this approach of here's absolutely everything you could possibly want to know, regardless of what you're using in terms of server-side configuration, browsers, whatever kind of thing. And it's just quite hard to pass as a complete beginner to this kind of stuff. You get to the Selenium docs and it sort of goes, well, here's how to do it in WebDriver and Selenium Server and Selenium RC and Selenium Grid. And you kind of think, well, I don't even know which one I need to use in the first place. Eventually I settled on WebDriver after some conversations with some guys in Mozilla that actually work on it. So that was quite useful. But then, of course, there's the challenge of finding all of the drivers for the browsers that you want Selenium to actually hook into and automate, and making sure that you're using the right versions of those browser drivers for the particular type of Selenium thing you're using. Installing the modules wasn't too bad when I found out what modules I needed to use for my Node environment. But yeah, making sure everything was communicating. I mean, probably the thing that caused me the most nightmare was trying to figure out why my WebDriver installation wouldn't communicate with the browser drivers. And I eventually realized that I'd set the path up wrong in the path variable. So there you go. In the US, do you use the expression school by error? Because it was definitely a school kid error. So in terms of the main things I think that we could benefit from to make this kind of transition into automated testing a bit easier for beginners. I mean, the stuff that's on Mozilla Developer Network that I've written is written purely using Node, because that's the stuff that I understand the best, and I think that's probably the best choice for someone coming from client-side web development. But I think it'd be really great to have some simple guides to take you from no knowledge to running Selenium tests for Python or .NET or Java or whatever other environment you're going to use. So I'd love to get some hints on, you know, what resources people found easiest when they were first learning to do test automation. I also think that the SauceLabs API docs, like the API that you use to update the job information, that could be a bit slightly better written as well, but I'd be happy to help the SauceLabs folk to write that. But that's pretty much it for my talk. Just a quick, short one. As I say, go and get these slides from slideshare.net/ChrisDavidMills, and there's links to all the useful stuff in there. So thanks for listening, folks. And that was a whole 15 minutes. Wow.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, any questions? We need to pad this out another hour, you realise, so. No, it's
that good.
it's okay.
Can I just confirm, you actually were employed by Mozilla, but your responsibility is cross-browser testing using the Selenium product? Is that
Well, that's one of the projects that I've been assigned to just recently. So it's been sort of a couple of months of writing documentation. The specific thing I do for Mozilla is writing documentation. So it's been a particular project of mine for a couple of months.
okay?
Yeah. Hello, sir.
So SlideShare contains only those slides, right? Not the course you're talking about.
The link here to cross-browser testing, that's a link to the course. So that it's linked to from the slides.
Okay, so is your node testing harness or whatever you use to test, is that available to you? Is there an example of what you did?
Yeah, I've got all the examples available from the course. There's I've got tutorials that take you through in detail how to build that node environment up yourself, and then I've also got all of the test code available on a GitHub repo as well, which is linked to from the course. So yeah, you can get everything from there.
Do you use a test site? I'm a little confused because this is Mozilla and they have a browser, but what's the app that you're testing against?
I basically just write a couple of really simple tests. Like, I think one of the tests I do is just to go to google.com and just test that when you search, it brings up the search page properly. It's just literally a couple of really simple tests, you know, just to get you used to it if you're someone that's starting from no knowledge. It's always good to have a really simple test case in those situations, so yeah. Okay. Any more questions, folks? Okay. Well, I think that looks like about it. I will hand the reins over.
Yay, nice work, Chris.
Do you,
Thank you very much.
did you want the... There we go.
Awesome.
Nice.
So do I just connect through this USB?
Yeah, and the... Have you got an HDMI?
I don't have an HDMI.
Oh, okay.
So people see my screen? It's okay. We'll make it work. You guys just have to trust me. Thank you, Chris. That was fantastic. Oh, is there an adapter? Cool. Sweet. It's always the second time, right? Yep. Okay, that was awesome. Thanks everyone again for coming. We have so much pizza back there, so please get a plate, grab some to go, bring it to your roommates or your housemates or your significant other. They'll love you forever. Grab some stuff, take it with you. We have some hot sauce in the back of the room as well. That's for you guys to take, courtesy of your friends at SauceLabs. Like I said, we are giving away, oh shoot. Stu, hand me the bike light and the notebook behind you. and the pen. So we have a couple of gifts here for our people who entered the survey. Our runner-up gift will be this awesome SauceLabs swag. We have a notebook and a bike light and a sweet SauceLabs pen. Yes, that's like our runner-up gift. So the way I'm going to do this is everyone who filled out the form is here on this spreadsheet. And I'm just going to do a random number generator from 2 to, 15? 2 to 15. So number 8. Sridhar from Hotwire. Enjoy. Some exclusive SauceLab swag. Okay. And then our grand prize, the $750 Selenium training class. It's gonna, yeah, drum roll. I like that. Number 2. Number 2 is gonna be Carlo from Adespresso. Yes, is that you? Yes. Congratulations. You win a free Selenium training class. I'm going to come talk to you as soon as we're done here. We'll go ahead and get that squared away. Okay. And with that, I believe that's it. Thanks so much for coming. We got out early tonight, guys. This is like a record Selenium meetup. Grab some more pizza. Have another drink. Stick around. We'll be here till 8. And we'll see you guys in 2017. All right? Thank you very much.